Mr. President, I was told I had 5 minutes to talk about, well, I was first told I had some time to talk about everything you could be doing in Missouri in the next month or so with your family, and then I was told I had 5 minutes, and those seem to be impossible restrictions for me. So let me see how many things I could talk about here as we end the summer family travel season, but there are other people traveling after the summer, families still, some of them have their summer vacation, some schools start after Labor Day, some before. So I'm for sure going to leave things out that I'd be glad to talk about at a later time. Let me just mention a couple of our national parks. If you leave my hometown, Springfield, Missouri, and you head west, you go pretty quickly, you get to the Wilsons Creek National Battlefield Park, the battle in August of 1861, several thousand people fighting who really weren't prepared to fight. They weren't trained, they weren't ready. It's a big battle that made a big difference in what happened in Missouri in the war. And you drive beyond that, not too far, and you get to Diamond, Missouri, where the George Washington Carver National Monument is. It's about a 240-acre park on a farm that George Washington Carver grew up on, a farm he was born on as a slave, but quickly was free and was raised by the older white couple that lived there, managed to get to school there a little bit and nearby soon. And in those years after the Civil War, not only became a leading scientist and spokesman for agriculture in the country, but also when this monument was established in 1943, it was the first national park dedicated to an African American. Now, I've got to circle back a little bit to get to Branson, but with 50 theaters in Branson, they have more theater seats than Broadway. It's never too early to find a show you want to see in Branson. Silver Dollar City is there, great park in the summer. Last year was named the #1 Christmas venue in America to visit. Now we're back to my hometown in Springfield on the way these come up in my list, and the home of Bass Pro Shops, but the Wonders of Wildlife National Museum right there by Bass Pro. It was named America's Best Aquarium by USA Today Travel last year. That museum has 3,000 fish, birds, mammals, reptiles, and amphibious animals there. Park that we've just added to our national park system. I've popped right up to almost St. Louis now, Sant Genevieve, where you have French architecture that dates back to the 1700s. This is the first summer that there's been a full-time park person there, but this park is just rising out of what that community has preserved so well for so long. A number of houses there that reflect that early French architecture along the Mississippi River. South of there at Perryville is the full-size replica of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. There have been some traveling memorials. There's a couple of memorials that are miniature in some way of the Vietnam Memorial, but at Perryville, Missouri, you can see a full-size replica. It's on a 47-acre family farm that Jim Edelman and his family made possible along with other donations. I was there not too long ago. I was at the Vietnam Wall here not too long ago. They are in different places, but they're the same wall, exactly the same size, the same names, the same way to visit. On the other side of our state at Kansas City, the National Negro League Baseball Museum is at Kansas City. Senator Kane and I just actually this week introduced legislation for a memorial coin to go to the benefit of the Negro League Baseball Museum in Kansas City. Congressman Cleaver and Stivers in the House did the same thing. While you're in Kansas City, here at the end of the 100-year centennial, the centennial of World War I, the World War I Museum in Kansas City was the World War I memorial, dedicated in the 1920s. It is the #1 place in America to think about the war and think about all the impact that the war has had in the 100 years that have passed since then. If you want to go north to Kansas City, to St. Joseph, of course, you pass some baseball stadiums and football fields, which are good places to visit if you're there at the right time. But in St. Joseph, the Pony Express Museum, that Pony Express didn't last very long, but it came really an important part of the lore of the West. These young riders that were suddenly, before telegraph, taking a message as quick as they could ride and change from one rider to another from St. Joe to California. Wouldn't want to leave out Mark Twain and Hannibal. And there's a time when Mark Twain was by far the best read American author anywhere in the world, and that Hannibal boyhood, still an important part of that. And then I'm going to circle right back down to the Gateway Arch at St. Louis, where the arch is just really, with 135 million people visiting the arch since 1963, just went through that 60-year renewal of the facility, connected it better to downtown. It's really the first example of what the Park Service hoped will be the next century of the park, a true public-private partnership. And in going to all these places, we drove by lots of lakes and lots of fishing and lots of boating. And there are a lot of things to do in our state. We're, like many states, tourism is our second biggest industry. And we look forward, Mr. President, to people visiting us this summer and next year and the years after that.